Serious, NSW. Prostitutes, strippers, escorts of Reddit. Have you ever had a real connection with a customer? What happened in the scenario? I was a stripper for 5 years. Only once did I fall for someone. It was in my last year. His name was Matt. Adorable, tattooed and easy to talk to. Danced for him a handful of times, kissed him a handful of times. Nothing further ever happened. He gave me his address to come over for his birthday after we have been talking for about 6 months. That would have been my first time hanging out with him outside of the strip club. As soon as I pull into his apartment complex, he calls and tells me he didn't feel well. So I left, went to the store, bought him some soup and came back to give it to him. Knock on the door and his wife answers. I stopped dancing that week. Long time stripper here. Only once. Many years ago. We dated for about 6 months. Normal relationship. Broke up amicably. We're still friends. Sorry the story isn't more sordid, but to be completely honest, we don't even look at customers as people. Really. When they leave the club, they cease to exist. Of course I treat them nicely, but really I'm not invested in them, so they don't matter to me. If you're looking for the happy ending, read this. I was a stripper in Seattle in the 90s and went up to Alaska on contract to a small couple of clubs there. I worked in Fairbanks at a little dive club on Old Airport Way. Because I was in from Seattle, I was one of the featured dancers. I was on stage one night, dancing to something dark and fast, and just as I finished a pole trick I noticed him. When I came off the stage we talked and left the club shortly after. My manager was worried about me taking off. I lied and said that we knew each other, and he retorted, Alaska is 2.5 times the size of Texas. You better home. He doesn't plan on killing you because it is likely no one will ever find you. Well, he did not do anything like that. In fact, we have been married now for 16 years. We have 3 children, and this next October will mark the 20th year since we met, and I love him more than I ever have each day. My DH made it rain before it was a thing. He was with me though another year of stripping, but when I was done he supported me. He was by my side when I had problems with intimacy because stripping made it easy for me to compartmentalize my sexuality and hard to let it loose with him, the person I love. I have since gone back to school and obtained a degree and have a good job in management of a medical facility. Guess you can make a hoe a housewife. Awesome story. Congrats on the long and happy marriage. I was an escort for 5 months. The plan was to do it for a year, save a crap ton of money, and then start my own business, non-sex related. I met a client for a 2-hour date one afternoon and the connection was instant and momentous. I felt really bad about taking his money at the end of it. That was last October, and we've been together ever since. We live together now and I cannot imagine being more in love or more compatible with someone. I quit escorting last March for his sake, never looking back. Oh, and I did manage to start my own business. Yay. Not a customer exactly, but yes I have. I had been working as a mid-range H for a few months, and he was an adult photographer. He offered to take some photos of me for my web presence, and I agreed. No money changed hands, I emphasize, but he knew me by my, H name. I met him the first time in a cafe. He put me at my ease immediately. I didn't even think of being attracted to him at that point, but I knew I was looking forward to going to his house studio for a naked photoshoot far more than was polite. At the shoot, I was nervous as all heck, of course, but he did his best to put me at ease. We drank wine and chatted, both before and during. Honestly, it was like one of the best first dates I've ever had. Aside from the fact that I was in various stages of undress, it was pretty much idyllic. We made each other laugh, we flirted a little, but not too much. I should add, nothing creepy from his point of view. We shared interests, histories, traded funny stories. 3 hours flew by before I realized I had to go. I didn't think I'd ever see him again. I felt oddly hollow about it, and as the next couple of days passed I realized that what I'd felt for him was a rush of white-hot attraction. Really, I hadn't recognized it for what it was due to the weirdness of the situation. I told myself that it was just my body reacting oddly to the unusual situation of naked photoshoot with sweet funny man. But eventually I decided there was more, though I still thought it was just physical at that point. I texted him to ask if he wanted to hook up, and he said yes. We set up basically a booty call for the next weekend. I was nervous, Surprisingly so, more nervous than I had been for ages, more nervous than I had been before the naked photoshoot. But the day came and I couldn't back out, and besides when I saw him again I didn't want to. We had sex, wonderful sex, afterwards, as I lay, breathless and sated, in his arms while he nuzzled my neck gently, I murmured, "Do you want to know my real name?" That was 6 months ago. We're still together. He was the best mistake I ever made. As a former webcam worker, I am still very friendly with one or two of my viewers. People are people, and work lines get blurred no matter what field you're in. Think about it. Sometimes accountants date their clients. No, sometimes connections just happen no matter the context. I worked as a cam general for a while. There were a couple of clients who I would give free private shows to or chat with off the clock for simply being cool individuals. Like, seeing their name show up in my room would be extremely refreshing, because I knew that even though they weren't going to a tip, they were going to provide me with something, rather than being a regular freeloader who spams TBB. And since of course I know what they come to the site to see, we make that exchange. Tit for tat, so to speak. Former stripper here. The one time I did have a connection with a guy, he was the most intelligent one there, just sitting at the bar waiting for his friends to be done with their tomfoolery. I wanted to ask him for his number quite badly, but I felt kinda scummy and never did. Still wish I would have. We had a great long conversation and I felt like it could have grown into something more. Hey, you win some, you lose some. It's not like I was there to find a man, I was there to work. Former stripper here. I had a lot of clients that I enjoyed as people, but one in particular that I ended up giving my number to. I was in a long-term abusive relationship at the time, and having someone talk to me sweetly and respectfully went a long way. Eventually he invited me to a wedding in Vegas and we had one of the most romantic weekends of my life. We kept in touch, but he lived very far away and became more friends over time. We were very different people, but our connection helped us both move on to healthier relationships and expectations of love. I didn't fall for him, but consider it an important experience, and I know he does too. We were very different people, but our connection helped us both move on to healthier relationships and expectations of love. I didn't fall for him, but consider it an important experience, and I know he does too. Wish more people would view each relationship like this. Learn what you need and what others need from each relationship you go through, and become a better person and better partner. I literally become a different person at work and am so on my guard. But there was this Abercrombie model that used to come in and we were all in love with him. If an Abercrombie model goes to a strip club, I feel a little better about myself. I'm a part-time cam model. I had a guy come in a lot who was very nice, tipped me well, and would often act as a mod when I had a full room. He was always very complimentary and not at all creepy, so I got his contact info and would text him when I was online and needed help in the room. We would occasionally text back and forth and we became what I would consider casual work friends, although he still didn't know my real name. At one point I was out of state visiting some college friends and we discovered that we were about an hour away from each other. He didn't ask, but he hinted that he'd like to meet me, so I said what the heck and met him at a bar. I assumed that he would want to have sex with me, something that I was not interested in, but I figured I could let him down easy and still be friendly. He had helped me make a lot of money over the months without ever asking or accepting a cut, even when offered, so I figured the least I could do is buy him a drink. We ended up having a wonderful time. He was very charming and witty and kind. Despite being older than me, he was sort of handsome, and I probably would have ended up going home with him had he brought it up, but he didn't. At the end of the night he just said that he had a great time and he thanked me for wasting a night with him. When I said that I didn't feel it was a waste, he kind of waved me off and said that he knew men who looked like me didn't like men who looked like him. I was kind of stunned. I mean, he was a perfectly good looking, if older and slightly heavy, man. I guess on the scale of superficiality I would be conventionally attractive, but I'm not a male model or anything. I never saw him again and he never responded to any of my texts again. But a few weeks later I had a guy start coming in that I think is him with a different screen name. I don't know for sure, it's just the phrasing of what he says, the things that get him worked up and stuff all kind of match, but I think he's embarrassed or something. That's the one and only time that I've met up with someone who watched me on cam. It ended up making me feel pretty badly about myself and I really haven't been able to work out why. It's better if I don't get too close. I honestly was not expecting you to be a guy. Nevertheless, I hope somehow you end up finding him a game D. I've been a sugar baby for a couple years and I've definitely been attracted to and had a genuine connection with clients. I've had some that were close to my age and attractive, but for personal reasons wanted to pay for an arrangement. Usually because they had a wife or girlfriend they were hiding it from. I also usually CM with clients. I've heard other sex workers say they never do, but if I can genuinely enjoy myself while I am serving a client, why not? It probably helps that I have a thing for the whole naughty taboo aspect of it. For reference, I am a college grad working in my field. It's just a way for me to make some extra money, and I enjoy it. A lot of guys pay for sex. It is a control thing and a fantasy. They treat sex workers better than their wives or girlfriends, most of the times. Late to the party, but high-end escort here. I generally have amazing relationships with all of my regular clients, but have fallen for two. With one, we have the most amazing sex. We share similar sexual proclivities and seem to connect in a way I don't connect with other clients. We've recently started seeing each other outside of work. My suggestion: as much as I am in love with what I do, it can be sort of lonely. You give a lot of yourself and it can be mentally and emotionally exhausting. So sometimes it can be nice to connect with someone outside of work. There's still no commitment, but it can be a little bit more about you and not be all about them. The other client, well, head over heels for him. I spent some time vacationing with him, got home and knew that I was in love. It's the most illogical and confusing thing. We haven't discussed it, but I believe that he feels similarly. Nothing will ever come of it and it's sort of an is what it is situation. Why? I was an escort for over a year and been a stripper for 2. As a stripper I did fall in love with a customer once, but I would have fallen for him anywhere. And that's pretty much the rule of thumb. If I go home with you from a regular bar, I'll go home with you from a strip club. My stage name doesn't come with an alter ego with her own sexual and intellectual preferences. I want what I want. However, as an escort I never took my clients seriously enough to connect with them. I'm a hypocrite. Whatever. You sassy, thank you for existing. Yes, I was a pro-submissive, the opposite of a dominatrix. I charged large amounts of money to men who wanted to tie me up and spank me around a bit. I met him during the first few months of doing this sort of work. We emailed back and forth quite a bit. He seemed nervous. In fact, he said the only reason he contacted me was that the other girls didn't text or email. I had a session with him at his house, and after clearing up a bit of confusion, no, you spank me, we had a lovely time, in which his cat stepped on my head while I was bent over the bed. We had a few other sessions, and then I agreed to a date on my 21st birthday. We've been together 6 years, and married for 4 months. 3. I had a secret life and a client of mine I had been dating since I was 17 on and off for nearly 20 years 2 years ago asked if he could see my ID. I showed him as I was proud of having my name and gender legally changed, plus it is like the only good license pic I ever took. Anyway, he was very in the closet, so a few months later he calls me at 8 AM, which is really strange. So I answered and it was his brother telling me he had passed away from cancer and that I needed to go downtown to this law office and talk to Phil's lawyer. He had put me in his will. Honestly, of all the men I dated, he is the only one I would have happily married. I think I cried off and on for about 3 weeks after. I'm not the adult entertainer, but I did make a connection with a dancer. As a 21-year-old virgin and a guy who never went on dates, I became extremely lonely last year. People say that I am a catch. I'm kind and good looking but never really connected with any girls. So eventually I felt like I wasn't good enough. One lonely night, I decided to hit up a strip club downtown that I went to before with a friend who was broken-hearted. My first dancer I ever had was working and I waved her over. Brunette and wore glasses just the way I like. She was soft-spoken and sweetest girl I have ever met. Really caring too. She made sure drunk guys got water and cabs home. We spoke for a bit, and she sat on my lap. She told me the world of being stripper and all sorts of behind the scenes stuff and her life. We went to the back and starts telling me how he dated Asians and that I could find a girl no problem. Things got hot and heavy. I asked her if she would be interested in going to a basketball game since I got discounted tickets. She said yes and exchanged numbers. We had a blast and the result was that I went over to her place. We didn't have sex since she was on her period, but we did sleep together and did other stuff. Later, she called me and told me that she met the love of her life and hoped we could be friends. I was a little thrown off, but she really made a huge positive impact on my life. I didn't want to lose her, so I got over it quickly and we still text and talk. Sometimes, she comes to me for advice. I met the boyfriend. Very nice man, also very caring. I'm grateful that I walked into that strip club. TLDR. Met stripper, hung out with her, sort of hooked up and became close friends. You're a good dude. Keep at it, man. You really are a catch. Any girl would be lucky to have you. This will probably get buried. I have never had a connection with a customer. When I am chatting with them, I am usually thinking about how I can get them into the back room. When I am dancing for them, I sing to the song in my head and kind of dissociate. I hate when they try to stick their fingers up me or suck on my tea. I just kind of think about other things then move along to the next guy. I don't like any of them, so nope, no connection. Now I feel very naive. I had no idea that people would try to do that while you're dancing. Jesus. I remember reading a story here on Reddit about a man hiring an escort while on a business trip. It was her first time and needed the money to get back home. Well, when they finished, she was crying and said something about she wished she didn't meet him this way because to the connection they had. I love that story. They texted a while until they faded away. It had this kind of beautiful listless movie pull back into the sunset without resolution while each go on with their lives feel. I had one. He still to this day is stalking me and trying to fix things. We were very casually seeing each other for like 3 months. A year later he is still obsessed with me. I suppose it's what you expect from a guy who consistently goes to strip clubs. Can't make any friends, so he pays girls to talk to him. Well, I am a rent boy and yes I did. I was talking with this ginger bearded, dorky 20-something guy for a short while before he wanted me to come. I went to his house. We talked for like 2 hours or so, flirted constantly, and there was butterflies all over my stomach. We almost forgot to have sex. Then we did, and I was nervous as heck. Fricked up, couldn't bottom. He was nervous as heck, always sucking my tongue and doing awkward stuff with his dong, sticking it between my legs. And after that day, he never called me back. Kinda sad, always wanted him to. There were a few customers who came in that I became pretty solid friends with. However, while I was dancing I was already in a somewhat committed DS relationship, so it was hard to have real connections. There was one guy who I stayed in touch with well after changing occupations, and we were close until he told me that he decided to not divorce his wife for the sake of his children. So that ended. Another almost romantic connection I had during the time was an illicit affair that I was having behind my then owner's back. It had to end for obvious reasons and we were both very heartbroken. We never got a chance to love each other the way we had hoped. Such is life. I'm glad I came across this question. I am a prostitute. In fact, I dislike all of my clients. No hate, though. I really do see everyone as a beautiful, unique soul. However, a lot of these men are looking for something wonderful in the wrong place and, in turn, hurt a woman's self-respect when they indulge in the beauty of sex by using money. But I need to eat. It's a mutual agreement. The last client I was with grew bothered when I asked about his hobbies, his family, and his ambitions. I realize he has a unique soul, as we all do, yet he was seeking approval in the wrong places. Sex. These men make me sad. They think sex can fill the void they feel. I had a sugar daddy once with whom I felt a deep connection. There was no business transaction involved, simply a silent agreement. We both loved 1800s Russian literature and, despite the fact that I was making money off him, I was also experiencing a connection with a kindred soul. To this day I have never met another person who wanted to talk about Tolstoy and Dostoevsky with the same depth we did. Some days we would just go to parks and talk about literature. Customers who want straight up sex for cash, they have no real meaning to me. I have no real meaning to them. I still feel that they are beautiful souls who know things I do not know. I am a vessel for someone to feel alive through. I am young and have a nice, supple body that can be utilized as a commodity. Someday I will grow old and be traditionally unattractive, and this does not bother me. That's how the ball rolls. Interesting response. Not an escort exactly, but I am a sex worker. To date, I've had no connection to any of the men I've worked with. Simple as that. They're basically talking ATMs. I had a customer that I used to dance for. He was nice enough, strictly platonic, and had a legit restaurant repertoire. We would meet for lunch all the time. However, it was too awkward to dance for him after that. I had another customer that I would meet for lunch sometimes too. He was much pushier, and after a platonic trip out of town with him that ran aground, we have stopped talking. I'm really not into meeting customers outside of the club. When guys try to pick me up while I'm at work, it is the most unattractive thing. But why is it unattractive? You are looking sexy for me and you must like us sometimes. Asking me out while I'm at work is unattractive because you have no basic understanding of how my work operates and will probably struggle to comprehend it. How my work operates: I'm here to give you a bit of a good time for compensation, not to get you off, or date you, or love you. I'm a human being with a life outside of this glitter-covered facade. I see how you treat people that are serving you. My job is a service job. If you disrespect me, you are already someone I would never date anyways. If you push your boundaries or do things I ask you not to, you are someone I would never date. I have mad boundaries, and boundary pushers, consent violators are the worst. Sure, this may be the only chance to ask me out, but I will still say no. If fate sees us to be together, you will see me at a store or something. If a guy has beef with my work, he gets the boot. Also, I prefer to date guys that don't spend their money at a strip club. My life, my rules. When you are getting manhandled by hundreds of men with their little hard-dongs, and strange smells, and disrespectful hands, you have to be true to yourself and stand your ground as firmly as possible. Call me jaded, but I've gotten this far. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.